Let's talk about the filibuster for a moment. I have referred to this a couple of times in the last couple of weeks, more or less in passing, and I haven't done a really serious deep dive on it, and certainly hadn't done one over at HartmannReport.com. So yesterday afternoon, Louise and I brainstormed this thing and said, let's just lay it out. Why is it that there's still a filibuster? Why? You know, the filibuster was basically used from the 1830s up until the Civil War to block anti-slavery legislation. It was used from 1865 to 1965 for 100 years, almost exclusively to block civil rights legislation. Since 1965, it was used, not all that frequently, frankly, until 2007. And something happened in 2007. What happened in 2007 was America's first black president was elected. And Mitch McConnell and the hard right and the Republican Party declared war on America's first black president and said, you are not going to have, to Obama, you are not going to have any success with anything. And they literally filibustered everything he did. If you scroll down to the bottom of today's piece, at HartmannReport.com, I took these tables from the United States Senate. The number of filibusters in the Congress in 1923-24, 0. 27-28, 0. I mean, it's 0 all the way up to 1959-1960. Cloture was invoked 0 times. Cloture was then invoked in 62, 61, 62, 1 time. In the Congress of 63, 64, 1 time. The Congress of 65, 66, 1 time. Congress of 69, 70, 0 times. It was like, fewer than a half dozen times in the 60s, fewer than 30 times in the entire decade of the 70s. It picked up a little, 10, 11, 12, 20, things like that throughout the 90s and the early 2000s. But then we hit 2007. In 2006, there were 68 cloture motions filed, efforts to enact a filibuster, 68 of them. The next year, Obama comes into office, boom, 139. By 2013, it was 252. In 2019, it was 328. I mean, it's just, the filibuster's everywhere. So the question is why? Who benefits from this? Well, here's how it works. And both sides play this game, by the way. The single reason right now why Kyrsten Sinema and Joe Manchin are getting, she's getting harassed walking through airports. One of her constituents was trying to talk to her as she was walking through the airport with Tim Scott last week. And Joe Manchin has got, in his hometown newspaper, editorials being run calling him a sellout. Why are they suffering like this? And they are. Trust me. I mean, they both of them, I think, love being the center of attention, but they don't like a lot of this attention that they're getting. Why are they getting this attention? Because there is no filibuster when it comes to reconciliation. Reconciliation is a hole in the filibuster that can only be applied for budget items that have to do with taxing and spending. You can't, for example, use reconciliation to end Social Security or criminalize abortion. It has to have to do with taxing and spending. Very specific limits. This hole in the filibuster, reconciliation, was created in 1974 and then was fine-tuned by Robert Byrd in 1985 because the Reagan administration was basically abusing reconciliation to get tax cuts through and other goodies that they wanted. So because this legislation, Joe Biden's legislation, is not subject to a filibuster, it can be passed with 50 votes. If something can be passed with 50 votes, any one senator can shoot it down, but they have to do it publicly. Now, if this bill had not been passed or, proposed to be passed through reconciliation, if it was just, regular order in the Senate, it would be filibustered, or not necessarily regular order, but just the way things are normally done in the Senate. It would be filibustered, and suddenly you'd need 60 votes. And then Manchin and Sinema would never have had to step up and say, I'm opposed to the taxes, I'm opposed to the fossil fuel stuff. They could have voted for it. They would have voted for it, knowing that they couldn't get 10 Republicans, it would get shot down, it would die an ignominious death, and nobody would know that Kyrsten Sinema was owned by the banksters, and nobody would know Joe Manchin was willing to put the interest of the fossil fuel industry ahead of the future of his own children and grandchildren. But we know that now because there is no filibuster when it comes to reconciliation. There should be no filibuster when it comes to anything. What happens right now is a piece of legislation comes forward to say regulate the banksters, or regulate big pharma, or regulate the airlines. And let's say that, we have the current situation where the Democrats are in charge. That legislation, there's some Democrat who's taking money from the airlines, there's some Democrat who's taking money from the banks. They would kill it and have to stand up and do so publicly if there was no filibuster. But because there's a filibuster, they'll all vote for it. Sure, yeah, we like that. Even while they're being paid off by the banks. Because they know that it'll never pass. And the Republicans play the exact same game when they control the Senate. Mitch McConnell, there were all kinds of pieces of legislation that his base wanted that he was like, I'm sorry, I can't pass this. The Democrats keep filibustering what we try to do. Both sides hide behind the filibuster. They go back home and they say, oh, I'm sorry, we couldn't get 60 votes. You've heard it on this program. So I say it's time to blow up the filibuster. And we now have 45 Democratic senators who are saying we need to modify at the very least the filibuster, which is great. And you have 13 of them who have come right out and said, end the filibuster. That's Blumenthal, Brown, Cardin, Casey, Gillibrand, Hirono, Heinrich, Klobuchar, Markey, Rosen, Sanders, Schatz, and Van Hollen. The phone number for the Senate is 202-224-3121. If one of those names I just called is your senator, call them up and thank them. And if your senator isn't signed up, hang on.
You're listening to the Thom Hartmann Program. Call 202-808-9925.
And if your senator hasn't signed up for ending the filibuster, ask them why. 202-224-3121.